Well, it's another warm welcome back, all of my loyal YouTube subscribers, and also if this is your first time visiting Classic Dirt Bike TV, I hope you find something here to interest you with regards old vintage dirt bikes. Now, my next featured bike is a machine I captured a couple of years back at a Classic Scramble event held by the Westmoreland Motor Club. So I hope you'll stay with me for the next few minutes as we take a look at Lee Johnson's TT600 Yamaha Special. Now, this very nice looking four-stroker is a hybrid machine that Lee put together some time ago. Now, it's a bike that's made up from various makes and models of other machines, although at first glance it does look like it's a purpose-built factory motocrosser. Now, if we start with the frame, which is not as you would expect from a Yamaha, but actually this is from a 1978 Husqvarna 390 motorcycle. And the main reason that Lee used the Husky chassis for his new bike was that it was just lying around in his workshop, and many of the other parts that went into the eventual build of this bike were again all surplus spare parts that Lee had lying around. Now, to make the big TT600 motor fit into the Husky frame, Lee had to alter the bottom section of the frame to allow the engine to sit low enough, and this was also done in order that he wouldn't have to move the swing arm pivot. The footrests were also repositioned due to the kickstart and gear lever positions on the 600 Yamaha motor. Now, the rear subframe was taken from a YZ 490 Yamaha, and this also had to be re-engineered to allow space for the motor's Mikuni carburetor. Now, also, because these 600s normally stored their engine oil in the Yamaha frame, Lee had to then adapt the Husky chassis and fitted an oil cooler storage tank just around the headstock. The engine is an TT600 four-stroke, and almost all of the work on the motor was done by Mark Freudenau at MHF Restorations. The engine is more or less stock, although it did receive a new Athena race piston and a new cam chain and various other little improvements when Mark had the motor stripped down. The single Mikuni carburetor feeds a pair of inlet tracks with fuel, and this particular part was actually taken from a 600cc Yamaha Grizzly quad bike. But these big 600 Yamaha four-stroke motors have an overhead cam 4-valve top end with twin header exhausts in the cylinder head, which is very similar in design to the old Honda XR500 4-banger engines. Now, these had a bore of 95mm and a stroke of 84mm with a 5-speed gearbox and your standard wet multiplate clutch. But these engines were basically an upgraded and bigger version of the older TT500 power plants, and if my memory serves me right, I'm sure these also had a balancer shaft to help make the motor smoother and reduce vibrations. But overall, these were still very good, solid, reliable engines. Okay, they're maybe not going to win you the whole shot prize on the day for being the quickest bike into turn 1, because that's not really what these big 600s were all about, but what they could do was supply you decent grunt when you needed it, and they were virtually bulletproof when it came to reliability and if you looked after them, these motors would give years of service with very little spannering required in terms of maintenance. Now, these front forks on Lee's 600 are taken from a 1982 YZ 490 Yamaha, and although in their stock trim they're quite decent units, Lee has added stronger springs from Simon Gower, which helps with the extra weight added with that bigger engine. Now, these wheels and brake drums are also taken from an 82 YZ 490, although they were never really designed to cope with trying to slow down the heavier inertia weight of this big 4-stroke 600. Now, at the bike's rear end, you can see that Lee is very serious about his bike's suspension, and he's grafted on a pair of these piggyback rear shocks from Falcon suspensions, which are of course all made right here in the UK. Now, these twin shockers should do a good job on this bike, as I used to have a couple of similar units on my old 1980 440 Micro when I raced it way back in the day. But the good thing about these units are that they're fully adjustable and rebuildable if you need to tune or customize them for your particular weight or riding style. Now, because of the rest of the chassis being taken from a 78 390 Husky, then I'm just assuming that this steel swing arm is also from that very same Husky model. Now, once more, this Yamaha seat is from a 92 YZ 490, and the fuel tank is also taken from that very same bike. And actually, Lee had first fitted a fuel tank from a DT175 Yamaha initially, although after a couple of experimental runouts found that it was decidedly painful in the groin area when sliding his weight forward, so he's opted for this much better YZ plastic Yamaha unit. But although this bike is a hybrid and a bit of a mongrel really made from other makes and models of other machines, it certainly doesn't look like a one-off special, as everything just seems to fit together perfectly. But at first glance you could swear that this was another long lost Yamaha 4-stroke model from years gone by. But from the initial idea to build the bike until its eventual completion took Lee about 3 years to get it to this stage. Now, this was mainly because he was always experimenting with different parts to see what fitted best on the bike until he eventually finished up with the final product that we see here. Although, having said that, this is just one of the many bikes that Lee has in his collection, as he also has a nice original Can-Am and a sweet little KX Kawasaki that he uses as his #1 weekend race machine. Now, I did ask Lee what his big TT600 was actually like to ride on the track, and as you would expect, he said the front and rear suspension is almost perfect in terms of its handling and rider feedback, but he also said that the motor tends to have more power than he actually needs, and it was a little fiery using the 1/4 ton throttle that he had initially fitted. So there you have it, something a bit different here on Classic Dirt Bike TV. That's Lee Johnson's very nice Yamaha TT600 Hybrid 4-stroke. Now, there are more vintage classics already in the pipeline here at Classic Dirt Bike TV, so I do hope you will all continue to subscribe to my channel to see more of these iconic off-roaders. This video was brought to you in association with Wealthsport, the world's #1 supplier for all your off-road, sports and leisure wear. just visit their online website at wildsport.com for more details.